Welcome in, everyone, to this minor league production of a major roster bubble projection for Team USA for the 2026 WBC, better known as the World Baseball Classic. My name is Party Goggles, but I go by Jay. Like I said, today I'm going to be bringing you my roster bubble projection. It's kind of like an alternate list. So we're going to be going through some names of guys that I didn't have in my original roster projection. If you haven't seen that video, I recommend you go see it. I think I have some pretty good information in there. Either way, we're going to be going through and looking at kind of what our final was at the end of that video. That's the next slide. So why don't I just go there right now? So yeah, these are the guys that I have for Team USA starting and our bench. Just a couple things. Team USA has had 3 catchers for every tournament outside of one, I believe. So that's why I have 3 catchers here with Cal Raleigh, Adley Rutschman, and Will Smith. I tried my best to incorporate a good level of righty-lefty balance in this lineup. When I was constructing this, I looked pretty hard at the archetypes and roles that guys would play on a team. So I looked at things like righty-lefty splits. Obviously, I looked at right-handed, left-handed batters, and just kind of positional versatility. That's why I think somebody like, for example, Mookie Betts is highly valuable to the team. Even though he isn't having the greatest season right now, he is still a very important part of this team, just for the fact that he can play outfield, he can play infield, and he can play anywhere in those places outside of first and catcher and pitcher, obviously. But yeah, it's things like that. Just like how many ways can you affect a game, and in how many ways can you change it in one play? So that's kind of what I looked at and analyzed. Let's just get into it. If you were watching that last video and you wondered why some of the guys weren't there, or if you're looking at this and wondering the same thing, that's exactly what I want to talk about. And I just want to clear this up right now. I don't believe that everyone that I have on this roster list is necessarily in consideration for Team USA. Some guys I think are going to be considered more than others, but we'll talk about that as we go through them. So I'm going to go through each player that I have on my alternate list, compare them to a similar person that's already on this roster here, and then we'll see where we go from there. So in the outfield, if you didn't see in the last slide, I have Aaron Judge, Mike Trout, Kyle Tucker, Corbin Carroll, and PCA. So everyone that I look at for outfield that didn't make the team, I have to compare to these guys in some way or form. So the first guy that I have in consideration is James Wood. This guy is on a tear right now, man. He is making it exceptionally difficult to keep him off the roster. He's somebody that I think, he's really young. So my initial impression of him was, let me wait and see if he can do it for a full season. Where we're already more than halfway through, where he's going to be participating in the All-Star game and the Home Run Derby. I'm starting to have a really hard time keeping him off the roster. And I think I can find a way to move him on. He's got everything I want. I think the player that he most compares to that I already have on my roster, and kind of similar to all these left-handed outfield bats that I have on my alternates list, is Kyle Tucker. Just because James Wood, he does one thing very well, and that's hit. So let's just look at his Baseball Savant page. This is a couple days old. I think it's from Sunday, but it's still relevant. I mean, the numbers haven't jumped or changed too much. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of red here. You can see some of these peripheral stats, like expected batting average, expected slugging. Those are all really good. Average exit velo. I don't care too much about that. But what I do care is just these stats on kind of the left-hand side of the page, where you see the at-bats. He's been healthy pretty much the whole year. He has a high amount of hits. He's producing a lot of power with home runs. He's viable on the base paths with his speed. And he doesn't necessarily have outstanding speed, but it's above average. And I think that can play into maybe a stolen base or two during the tournament if he gets there. And I'm starting to really hope that he does. You have to remember, just because I didn't include these guys on the roster projection originally, it doesn't mean that I'm not willing to put them on if I start to see stuff or continue to see stuff that I think warrants them being there. James Wood is one of those guys where, he's having such a good season. Even when I compare him to somebody like a Kyle Tucker, well, there's not too much of a difference here. I think actually even James Wood could be more valuable potentially, because he has the ability to use the whole field when he hits. Sorry, I'm kind of moving back and forth between these, but I just want you to see on that hit spray chart that he's a guy who can produce power opposite field. He's not just a pull power hitter like Kyle Tucker. And to be fair, I'm sure Kyle Tucker can hit opposite field for power as well, but he's a guy that plays his pull, and I think that's, you do you. He's obviously had a lot of success in the MLB doing it. The original reason why I went with Kyle Tucker for this team over somebody like James Wood, and again, I say over somebody like James Wood because I analyze this in roles and archetypes. Kyle Tucker has previous WBC experience where we have the same manager who is Mark DeRosa. I just feel like he's going to be more willing to roll with guys that he's been with before, that have seen the culture of the tournament, that know that you have to be ready to go day one. And you can talk about that all you want in a locker room, but until you actually experience it, I think it's going to be, it means a little bit more when you're there for it. Kyle Tucker obviously participated heavily in the tournament last iteration in 2023. I feel like he was a very good performer. He's been doing it for such a long time. He's really hard to boot off. And I don't really want to boot him off just for James Wood because, yeah, we're comparing 38 OPS points. And it's, at that point, how big is the difference really? I feel like it's kind of marginal and subjective when you get down to those kinds of numbers. So they're very similar players. They both have really good splits. That's another thing that attracts me about James Wood is the fact that he can hit both righties and lefties. He has really good outfield defense. The arm isn't incredible, but I don't need it to be, not necessarily for this tournament. I don't expect him to change the game on defense. That's not why I would put him on this team. I would put him on this team because I value his bat, just like with Kyle Tucker. They're both bats, okay? So I think Kyle Tucker is more of a pure hitter, and I'd kind of throw James Wood in there as well. They're both disciplined. They don't chase a lot, so that's another thing. I think Kyle Tucker has him beat a little bit in that category, but again, it's marginal. So yeah, James Wood is definitely the guy that I would look at first on any alternate position player list that I have, and he's the guy that I would go with first. He's my first call. The next person that I have here is Byron Buxton. So now we're shifting from a left-handed outfield bat to a right-handed alternate bat. Byron Buxton is a guy who's obviously had the ability to accrue a very good reputation in the MLB. I think a lot of people respect what he's been able to do with the Twins, especially with the Twins because they've had some down years while he's been there, but he's been a consistent performer when he's been healthy. For me, that's the if. It's if he's going to be healthy. I think he has the reputation. He has the, I guess you would say, the aura of being a Team USA member. I just wonder if his insurance would get cleared, where he's having the first healthy season in a long time. Maybe the Twins would be a little bit more maybe they would encourage him to skip this a little bit, but I don't really know. That's just my speculation, right? All I can see are his numbers and what he's been able to do in the field, and he is, he's been very, very good. I think this sprint speed down here at 30.3 feet per second, he's clocked the fastest in the MLB. He's 31 years old and he's still able to move super well. So I like Byron Buxton for a lot of different factors. His outfield prowess is really good. Obviously, the batting is incredible. I hope that if he's ready to go and he's ready to be healthy, he's not somebody that I would be upset to see on the roster, even if it did mean one of my guys was booted. Like I said, his legacy is really good, so there's not too much more to say about him. He's a really productive player. He's been a really productive player when he's been healthy for pretty much since the start of his career. I think the person that he would most compare to when I look at right-handed outfield bats, I'm not going to move off Aaron Judge no matter what, because, he's kind of a one-tool guy as well if you want to boil him down to that. Aaron Judge isn't going to change the game with a play in the field either. But, he hits so well that it's his one tool is just so outstanding that I can't ever really even consider moving it off as long as he's willing to participate and as long as he's healthy. And we know that he is. So, Aaron Judge isn't getting booted off. that means that I only have one other option to look at for right-handed outfield bats, right? And that would be Mike Trout. And Mike Trout's another guy where I'm like, this would be, I don't know if this would legitimately be Team USA without Mike Trout. If he's healthy and willing to participate, then why wouldn't you have him there? So in my opinion, I don't think you can move Mike Trout off for Byron Buxton. That's why I kept Mike Trout on my original roster, even though he is kind of underperforming this year. But I mean, underperforming by what metric? I think he's still an all-star. He's got very good power numbers. You can see here it's at 14. Obviously, the OPS isn't in the 800s, but I mean, it's basically 800. But yeah, everything looks good. The on-base percentage, the walk percentage, the slugging percentage, everything is good here. Hopefully, he's able to kind of round out the year in good health and continue to be an option for this team. And if you want my honest opinion, I think he's already on the roster. I'm sure just the way how D-Row has kind of talked about it before, you can tell that he has his guys that he's already asked. Like when they revealed Bobby Witt Jr. being the shortstop on MLB Network, he said that he had approached Bobby during spring training and asked him if he wanted to be the starting shortstop for Team USA, to which Bobby agreed, obviously. But we just got that reveal, less than 2 weeks ago? At least from right now. I think it's like it's July 9th. Don't know why I said June there. Time flies when you're in school, guys. Anyway, but yeah, I think Mike Trout has also already been asked and has already accepted. You can tell that he wanted to do it. Just if you listen to some of his interviews that are WBC specific, he's been very enthusiastic about the tournament since he participated in it. So I don't think you can move Byron Buxton, like I said, off. I don't think you can move Mike Trout, off for Byron Buxton. But if you can find a way to get Byron Buxton on the roster, I think you should do it, just not over James Wood. James Wood is just a better baseball player right now, in my opinion. But, the difference is, I mean, you're trading an all-star for an all-star, so how big is that difference, really? If you like Byron Buxton more, then, yeah, you can argue that you want him there more. The next guy that I have here is Riley Greene. I looked at Sean Spradling's Twitter announcement of the Team USA roster, his dream team, and the entire comment section was just totally laden with, why is Riley Greene not here? He would be the third best hitter on this team, and all this just information that people were spitting out, basically just total outrage at the fact that this guy wasn't on the roster. And I can kind of understand it if you're a Tigers fan. He's obviously your guy. He's got a really good glove in the outfield. It doesn't necessarily rank as high as some other people, like a Byron Buxton, but he still has the ability to make good plays. Where he really brings his value, I believe, is the hitting. And again, where he's a left-handed hitter in the outfield, I have to compare him to those kinds of guys. So when I look at Kyle Tucker versus Riley Greene, I'm going to take Kyle Tucker 10 out of 10 times because Kyle Tucker, again, has that previous WBC experience. He's had success for a lot longer in the MLB. Riley Greene's pretty young, and that's not necessarily a knock on Riley Greene. He can't control that. I'm just saying that Kyle Tucker is a more proven asset to the roster. So he's somebody that I would just be more willing to roll with as opposed to somebody like Riley Greene, where they're very similar players. You're comparing kind of that tool set again of being able to hit, and Kyle Tucker just simply hits better than Riley Greene. And Kyle Tucker doesn't have a splits issue. That's the one knock that I have on Riley Greene that really scares me or makes me hesitant from putting him on the roster is the fact that he does have very poor splits. I have them down at the bottom of the page here. So you can see versus left-handed pitching, it seems like he's had a lot of opportunities already, over 100. And, I mean, he has struck out more than 33% of the time. To me, that's not an ideal rate. He strikes out a lot in general, but it's definitely more so against left-handed pitching. He's a very weak hitter against left-handed pitching. I mean, he's not even league average. So then again, when I look at some of the other people on my roster, they're not free from that criticism either. Corbin Carroll and PCA both have very weak splits. against left-handed pitching. So all three of these guys are comparable in that way. So I would rather look at potentially replacing one of them with a Riley Greene rather than somebody like Kyle Tucker or somebody like a James Wood or Byron Buxton who don't have those issues of the splits. But the issue that I find with Riley Greene is the weakness in the other facets of the game. He doesn't make up for the bad splits with defense or with the glove. Okay, I mean he's got a good glove. I said that before, but he's not going to change the game with it. PCA and Corbin Carroll can potentially change a game with their glove in one play, right? We look at 2017 with Adam Jones. If he doesn't make that catch against the DR in the second round, does Team USA move on to the final and win? I don't know that answer. I can't know that answer. But I can say that it certainly would have been a lot more nerve-wracking in that game, and there would have been a lot more pressure to perform and be clutch in a situation, especially at the end of the game, where, in another world where Adam Jones doesn't make that catch. My point in saying this is that if PCA and Corbin Carroll can change the game on defense, well then, doesn't that mean more to me where they're kind of similar-ish hitters to Riley Greene anyway? Wouldn't I want to roll with those guys, as in PCA and Corbin Carroll, because they have that defensive prowess and because they have also just their legs in general? I mean, they are crazy, crazy fast. So they can change the game also with, their base running ability. Corbin Carroll doesn't steal a lot. He doesn't really try. But I know that if I ask Corbin Carroll to steal in the postseason or in the WBC, he would be able to execute. I have a high confidence in his ability to be able to steal a bag. PCA steals a ton. You can see here he has 27 stolen bases already on the year. So that's the difference. It's how many ways can you affect the game? And Riley Greene can really only affect it with his bat. And I think PCA and Corbin Carroll can affect it in more ways. To me, that versatility brings value, and that's why I would roll with them over somebody like Riley Greene. And I want to be clear, I wouldn't be upset again if Riley Greene was asked to be on this roster and accepted, especially where we would be keeping him because I believe he's eligible for Puerto Rico as well. It would be good to be able to kind of keep him from them, but not at the expense of hurting the strength of your team. I do think that you would be hurting potentially the strength and dynamics of this team if you were to include one more guy who's just a lefty outfield bat, especially where he doesn't have the splits. I just don't think that the value's there right now. If somebody gets injured, maybe he'd be called, and I wouldn't have a problem with that at all. The next position... Oh, wait, no, sorry. We got to go through some other guys. These are people that I don't think will be called. I just wanted to kind of give them a shout-out. I'm loosely tracking them. Stephen Kwan, Trent Grisham. You could change Stephen Kwan also with a couple other names. Cody Bellinger's having a fine season, so is Brandon Nimmo. So really insert your favorite outfielder with an OPS of over 800. If I didn't talk about them already, you can just change Stephen Kwan for that. The reason why I had Kwan in here specifically is just because I like how he plays the game. I think he's, very fundamentally sound. He's got good defense. He's got a good arm. He's obviously got the ability to kind of play small ball. He doesn't have a lot of power in the WBC where you're Team USA and you can have, every outfielder should finish the season with 20 home runs or more. So if you can have that, I don't know why you wouldn't take it. Trent Grisham's having a really good year too. You can go look up his stats yourself if you want. They're pretty impressive. I just didn't think it was worth, seriously considering him for the roster when you have three people that in my mind are, very, very much above him with what they can do in their skill set. So the next position group that I wanted to look at was designated hitter. Obviously, anyone on the team could be a DH, and I foresee that role being somewhat fluid during the tournament. I hope that it's mostly occupied by Mike Trout or Pete Alonso. If Bryce Harper needs to play first base, I could see Pete Alonso being one of the better choices for DH. Like I said, Kyle Tucker could be there too. And another person that could be there is Cal Raleigh. I just don't know if the Mariners are going to be down to let him be used like that. And with the WBC, there's always that team factor, that club control factor of whether or not you can actually use the guys freely. And it doesn't seem, based on what D-Row has said in the past, it doesn't seem like that is the case. I think there's really only I think there's only one option here, and it would be Kyle Schwarber. He's got tremendous splits against left-handed pitching. His power numbers are almost identical to lefties. I didn't include them here. You'll just have to look at them yourself. But I mean, he doesn't have the splits issue. He's just a really good DH. He's not going to be viable in the outfield. Obviously, brings no base running value at all, but his bat is superb. So I could see Kyle Schwarber again being called in a pinch if somebody gets down, where he participated in the tournament last time as well. It's more likely, in my mind, that he'd be called. You'll see that with my catchers, too. I have someone on there that some of you might raise eyebrows at as my first option, but it's just because of the previous experience with the tournament. Like I said, kind of a beast in it of itself is the culture of this tournament. I mean, you have to be ready to go immediately. If you have someone who's been in it before and has had a pretty good deep run in it, just as Kyle Schwarber did in 2023 with Team USA, well then in my mind, that plays up. That makes you more valuable. So it's not just the hitting, it's the previous experience as well. If I'm looking at other DHs, that Ryan O'Hearn's fine, Brent Rooker's fine. I don't think either of these guys would seriously be considered over Kyle Schwarber, but they may be on some sort of list out there for Team USA in terms of alternates, so I just included them. I think Rooker would be good because he's a right-handed bat. O'Hearn's a left-handed bat. They're kind of similar with their production and numbers, and again, neither one of them really brings defensive value, so you could potentially, if you needed a right or left-handed bat, depending on what the team balance could use, you could call either one of them. The next position group that I want to look at is catchers. So I have Cal Raleigh, Will Smith, and Adley Rutschman right now. I think I said that at the beginning of the video. My thing with this is, I guess my hope is that we are only taking two. I would love to be able to axe particularly Adley Rutschman, just because Cal Raleigh and Will Smith are having such good years, they're impossible to move off. They are option 1A and 1B for Team USA catchers. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Adley Rutschman is having a weak year. So let me tell you who I would potentially use to replace him if he got hurt or something and we needed to have a third catcher if that was completely necessary. I would probably choose JT Realmuto, not because of his hitting, not even really because of his defense anymore, just because of the veteran presence and leadership that he kind of carries with himself. He's a very respected player. I think he'd be good to have, but he's not somebody that I would want over any of the guys that I have above him right now. With some of these people like James Wood or with Kyle Schwarber, you can say, hey, those guys are having better seasons than the majority of people that you have on your current roster projection. And while that is true, I already explained to you kind of the reasons in my thinking as to why I didn't include them. But with JT Realmuto, that's not the case. He's not having a better year than anyone on my roster. I feel like once your OPS falls below 700, you're not having a good year, in my opinion. So I don't mean to dump on JT Realmuto here. Again, he would be my first call if we needed a third catcher and one of those guys wasn't able to do it. Just because of the fact that he's participated in the tournament before, that's kind of what I alluded to with Kyle Schwarber. But, yeah, I don't think if this happened, I wouldn't be very enthusiastic about it. If he were going to replace anybody, it would be Adley Rutschman. But, yeah, I wouldn't even be enthusiastic about that just because Adley Rutschman, he's had more success as a hitter in the MLB than JT has. And, the defense is still fine. It is what it is. But, yeah, neither one of these guys I would really want to see, truthfully, on the roster. Which brings me to kind of here, let me tell you my last two catchers that I would consider before we wrap it up. Hunter Goodman, I think he would be a decent option because he's somewhat versatile in terms of his position. I know he could DH. I think he could play a little bit of outfield, maybe a little bit of first base. If we really needed a third catcher and Adley Rutschman went down, I think Hunter Goodman would be a very good option to call. He's having a good year. I don't want to put an asterisk on it just because he's playing for the Rockies, but obviously we do know with the elevation at Coors Field, it is a little bit easier to get hits. Logan O'Hoppe having a really good year in terms of power numbers. The other peripheral stats of hitting are kind of weak, but if you analyze him from a one-swing perspective, yeah, he could change the game with one swing. So that's worth considering in my mind. But again, going back to kind of Adley Rutschman, and my final point here is that I would like to move off Adley Rutschman for James Wood. I don't remember, I am positive Kyle Higashioka, who was Team USA's third catcher in 2023, did not play a single inning over Will Smith or JT Realmuto. Where we have the same manager this year, it would then kind of be reasonable for me to assume that he would push to have two catchers because that third guy wasn't used, because he just wasn't necessary. He wasn't needed. So, in my mind, that opens up another spot for a position player. And I'm working with a 15-15 split in terms of position players and pitchers. Some people like to use a 14-16 either way, like either ratio, and I kind of disagree with that. I think 15-15 is a good number. It just depends, though, where Team USA has a lot of MLB voices on their team and a lot of guys that aren't going to be able to pitch every day. Yeah, maybe 16 is a better option, but pitching's only half the game, so you can't just, in my opinion, you can't derail the other half and not add a piece that would be potentially very, very useful, even potentially as a starting piece. In my opinion, that guy would have to be James Wood. Like I said, he's the first person that I would add on from the alternates list, and I would replace Adley Rutschman with him for those reasons. That's going to be it for this video, guys. I am going to have another video where I go into the infielders, okay? So look out for part 2. I promise I didn't forget about some of these other guys like Alex Bregman or Spencer Torkelson. Like I said, my job, I want to really communicate this to you, so please pay attention to this. My job is to provide you with the best WBC roster education that you can find anywhere on the internet. Okay, and I'm not a perfect person. I make mistakes. I mess things up. I miss guys. I don't know everyone's eligibility perfectly. But when it comes to this, like this roster construction, particularly with Team USA, with some other rosters as well, that I'm already working on, by the way, I feel very passionate about the choices that I've made because they have a lot of research in them. They're not just thrown together. Okay, so some of you people who are from smaller teams, some of you people that are fans of smaller teams, like everyone's sleeping on C.J. Abrams, everyone's sleeping on Spencer Torkelson. I'm not sleeping on them. Okay, I just roll with guys for different reasons, and that's the purpose of this roster bubble video and series in general, is to kind of communicate to you why I didn't choose some of those guys over the names that I have on my personal rosters, which of course are subject to change. As you can see, I axed Adley Rutschman for James Wood. I'm willing to be flexible in this, and I'm willing to be fluid. Okay, I'm the kind of guy who wants to produce the best product, and you cannot produce the best product if you're inflexible. So that idea of being inflexible for me, just for personal pride, is kind of stupid. I want to provide to you the best education that you can find on the World Baseball Classic, okay? So with that said, I'm going to wrap it up here. Look out for part 2, please. We'll be going over the infielders, like I said. If you have any questions or anyone that you think I missed in terms of outfield, designated hitter, or catchers, and those need to be their primary positions, then tell me in the comments. Let me know, and we can have a good discussion. I would look forward to that. With that, I'll see you guys later.